Welcome to F101 with Friends, your pit stop for all things Formula One. Whether you're here for the stats, the memes, or just figuring out what a chicane is, we've got you covered. Buckle up, because the fun starts right now. Hi everyone, my name is Nisha, a newbie F1 girlie who is desperate to make more friends so that I can talk about this sport all the time. Each week, a new guest will join me on this journey, from seasoned F1 fans to other curious newcomers, and we will explore what it is about this million-dollar sport at gravity-defying speeds that we just can't stop watching. We'll try to break it all down in a way that's fun, relatable, and hopefully try to explain some of the tech talk. For the very special 4th of July American Independence Day weekend, we are ironically going to talk about the race in UK. Silverstone Circuit, the home for true racing and British bias. I'm definitely praying for rains in the UK because nothing beats Silverstone in the wet. Last year, we were all blessed with a downpour and got to witness a majestic Lewis Hamilton win. Here with some serious conflicts as a Mercedes fan is Joy. Welcome to the show, Joy.
Hello there. Yeah, hi, Nisha, and I'm glad that I could be part of your podcast. And yeah, it does sound a very exciting race weekend up ahead. Silverstone, as
Yep.
always, has been a race to watch, and it always throws a bit of drama into it. So yeah, fingers crossed for another thrilling weekend.
Yes, and thank you for taking time out of your holiday to do this. I really appreciate that.
Well, anything for F1, it's something that I have been following for decades now, since 1998 to be precise, actually. I was just 10 years old back then.
Wow.
And yeah, see, initially it was just watching race cars, watching like cars zoom past and fight with each other on a race. But
Yeah.
as in how I grew up and gradually started understanding what it means, how it aids the automotive industry and innovation and technology, also with the with Michael Schumacher getting to his zenith, I caught up onto the bandwagon and became hooked to the sport. So yeah, it's been a couple of decades now almost. So yeah.
And you've visited, you've been to one of the races as well, right? Because we had Chandre, your partner, on one of our episodes, the Suzuka episode. So clearly you had a great time there, both of you.
Not just one. I've attended 4 Grand Prix in my lifetime. All three are in India because I was in Delhi back then, and I was
Yes.
lucky to be part of the 3 Grand Prix that India hosted. And then Suzuka, of course, in 2019. So, yes, being part of 4 Grand Prix to catch the live action from track. And it is a thrilling moment or experience over the weekend. Goosebumps all along. So, yes, it has been a pleasure.
How much do you want the FIA to come back to India?
I want it always. I want new tracks. See, what happens is once you have Formula One being hosted by a country, a lot of enthusiasm and impetus goes into the automotive industry. So it helps, I believe, and people now that thanks to you and a lot of others who are getting a lot of people interested in the sport, people understand how driving is like not just for racing but also to understand the gear that they are driving in their daily life, like your car,
Yep.
how you take on the curbs, how can you do like even the regular stuff of being in lane and things like those.
Yeah.
So that awareness is very necessary if Formula One does come into a country. But having said that, India still has a lot more issues than to host like such sports, and have arenas to host such sports. So yeah, I mean, given that, I hope you're aware, right, why India does not host anymore.
Yes, the entertainment tax.
Yes. So we don't consider F1 a sport anymore. We consider it as
Yep.
entertainment, and hence we cannot host it because the taxes are way too much. So that, having said that, it is gonna take some more years before we can actually have another F1 race in India. But yeah, there's too many races in and around India, with Bangkok coming onto the calendar in 2028.
Yes.
So yeah, people can watch the sport or be a part of the excitement. And yeah, when it comes back to India, we'll all be there.
I know I am so excited for that whenever it happens because, I mean, not to get too nerdy, but the FIA did put out a report today just on general like fan interactions and in which country they see maximum participation. And India was mentioned a lot. So apparently, the Indian fans have the highest intent rate to attend a race, which means we will go out of our way to go to some country where hopefully they'll give us visa just so that we can watch these 20 cars zoom around.
Exactly. And I have had friends who are visiting some race or the other every year, like Singapore being one, Bahrain being the other, Abu Dhabi being another. So people are traveling from India to visit F1 because of the craze of the sport and slowly how it's caught up with the Zen Z or the Zen Alpha. And yeah, I mean, I'm hopeful that we will have many more who are interested in the sport, even to the extent of having more racers join the sport because go-karting arenas
Yep.
are becoming popular. So yes, let's hope so.
Fingers crossed on that.
Yes.
But I have one other question. Now, you've already mentioned what got you into F1. But I
Yeah.
do have one other question, which is if you were at a dinner party with your favorite F1 drivers, what would you like to say to them?
That's a very tricky question because I'll be all about asking them questions after questions because being a part of the sport and seeing it how it has evolved over the years and the modern era of F1 drivers, they function on a very different level. Like there's
Yep.
not just the sport but also the behind the scenes of it, how they maintain themselves, how they like do multiple things apart from being like they're icons, right? They are no longer just the driver. Like back in say the early 2000s, it was all about the cars, the companies. The drivers kind
Yep.
of took a back step, but today the drivers are the icons that people follow and get into the game for. So the questions
Correct.
that like a few questions that comes to my mind is how do they manage their sort of personal life along with the gear and the rigor that they need to go behind to become an F1 driver. And also the fact that once they have become an F1 driver, what drives them? Because till they are an F1 driver, till they're in the junior categories or the go-karting, it is the enthusiasm or the ambition to get into F1. But once you are in F1, what drives them?
Yeah.
Because then it's a whole lot like it's about personal life, it's about family, it's about money, fame, all of that. And this particular sport is very short-lived. The fame is very short-lived. So
Correct.
how does one kind of sort of cope up with it? Like make it part of their life. Like I can take some examples, like say Sebastian Vettel, for instance. He was a
Yeah.
ruthless driver back in the day when he was a youngster. He was just getting into the game. But once he got like married, had kids, he himself said that I would spend more time with my kids than race in, day out. Right. So things like those do change a sports person. But for F1,
Yep.
it's living on the edge. You can be there and there can be a mishap tomorrow. Right. So how does a F1 driver actually cope up with that? Is something that would be really enlightening to know.
That's such a deep question to ask. And I also completely agree with that point that you mentioned, right? That the fame is so short lived. I mean, when was the last time that we all mentioned Daniel Ricciardo? Like, and he
Exactly.
was just racing
Yeah.
just last year.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So,
mean,
yeah, that does tend to happen. And you've been watching this sport since you were 10, which is crazy to me. I mean, it's awesome because I wish I had known about this sport since then. But if you had to pick, who would your top three drivers be? Of from all the time that you've been watching, who would be your top three?
well, Michael Schumacher for one, because that guy kind of got
Yes.
me hooked to the sport. Uh, Coming back, there would be Kimi Raikkonen because of his sort of iced attitude towards the whole game.
Yes.
Yes, and now I'm an ardent fan of Lewis Hamilton because of what he is. He's just an icon of the sport. So these would be my top three drivers that I have been following and kind of still do. So yeah,
That's quite a star-studded dinner party that you're hosting.
I wish I
But
get to do that someday.
and I can imagine like the cuisine that you have to have because you have to have all vegan stuff for Lewis. You have to have like 700 bottles of alcohol for Kimi Raikkonen.
Yeah. See, that's what they bring to the table, the eclecticism that everybody kind of like garners or they bring into the sport. That itself is exciting. Like if you look at any other sport, you won't find people so diverse. Like they're all
I agree.
like kind of similar or so about roundabout, but then this sport you get people from all spheres of life, and they kind of have their own passions, own ways of coping up with life in general and the sport. So yeah, it is gonna be quite a dinner party.
Yes, yes. And someday, if you do get to have that, I'm really excited to get inputs on how the three of them interacted with each other.
Well, I would be if I get to do that, I am the next Will Buxton, so you will definitely get a bite of that.
But awesome. This week we are heading to the crown jewel of British motorsport, Silverstone. It is the OG, the blueprint, the place where Formula One literally began. And in 2025, this circuit is buzzing louder than ever, not just because of the racing, but because Hollywood has been crashing the paddock as well. If you haven't seen the new F1 movie, a bunch of the film was made right here. Personally, I'm really excited to talk about this track because it has a lot of corner names and a lot of history. So, some quick facts about this race. Being the first ever race for F1, you can guess that this race began in 1950, and it has been on the calendar ever since then. In fact, King George and Queen Elizabeth were at the first race. Drivers will do around 52 laps of this 5.891 kilometer circuit. Yes, it's very long, with just about 18 corners and 2 DRS zones. The current lap record is a 1 minute 27 seconds, 0.97 milliseconds. It's held by Max Verstappen in 2020.
Yeah, so just like the Austrian GP, Silverstone also had back-to-back races in 2020. One was Silverstone and the other was the 70th anniversary Grand Prix. And both of them had a lot to throw at us because the first race, if you remember, Lewis Hamilton won the race with only 3 wheels. He had a
Correct,
punctured
yes.
wheel and Verstappen was catching him like at the race of knots. But that's perhaps the only race in history that a racer has won on 3 wheels. So yeah,
Yep.
Silverstone does throw a bit of drama at you, as I said.
Yeah. In fact, at that time, if he had said, Bono, my tires are gone, he was literally right.
Yes.
And yeah, this track is like one of the drivers' favorites. It's also one of the it's also a fan favorite because it tends to draw one of the biggest crowds of the year, and people make a whole weekend out of it. They camp out in the grounds nearby. There's barbecue setups, makeshift toilets, and I found this out through a podcast episode. As you mentioned, Will Buxton. It was an episode with him. He was absolutely broke. But he wanted to be an F1 journalist, so he would hang out in these campgrounds and get to know the people. He would buy the cheapest tickets just to enter the track, and he would have no money. He would just rely on the warmth of the people in the grounds to give him a place to crash, some food, and of course, through a lot of hard work and PR, he managed to get himself a reporting role for F1. And of course, a chance to be in the new F1 movie. I know we all make fun of the way that he talks and says the most obvious things, but I really do have to appreciate his grit.
Yeah, it does. And to add to your point, if you have been watching Silverstone races over the years, you might have seen people dare it out through the British weather, through the rain. There have been occasions where there have been like crazy storms over the weekend, and yet they have camped out and staked it out just to watch the race. So Silverstone itself is kind of an emotion. It's not just a race.
Yes.
But also to add to that, Silverstone isn't just historic, it's personal for a bunch of the grid. This is the home race for Lewis Hamilton, my favorite, George Russell,
Yes.
Lando Norris, the current contender, Ollie Behrman, and Alex Albon. And trust me, the British fans show up for all of them. The Lando
do.
Norris grandstand this year was sold out in a few minutes. And finally, this is the home race for more than half the teams on the grid. Mercedes, McLaren, Aston Martin, Red Bull, technically, which is just a few kilometers away at Milton Keynes, and Williams
Yes.
all build their cars within an hour of this track. The paddock feels like a very fast family reunion indeed.
Yeah, it's like Fast and Furious, where
Yeah.
he says it's about family.
It is.
But Yeah. And Silverstone actually started life as a World War II airbase, and you can still see parts of the old runways in the layout. That's why the track is so flat and has all these long sweeping sections. It was literally built for planes, not cars. And you've seen the races over the years, Joy, and you know what the track looks like. How would you describe the track as in like an everyday object?
Well, to be really honest, Nisha, I've heard this bit on your previous episodes, and it's almost impossible to describe this track as an everyday object because it looks like a pure racing track with all kinds of turns, corners, and straights. But I'll still try. So I
Yes.
think it looks like an F1 driver's head wearing a cap and holding up a trophy.
You're right. It's a stretch, but if I really try and believe, I think I see it. So, turn one would actually be the top of the cap, going down to turn three, which is the visor or the bill of the cap. Turn four and five would be the starting of the arm, which sort of merges with the trophy across turns 8, 9, and 10. Turn 11 is the driver's elbow and it cuts across the bust of the driver at turn 15, going up to 18, which would be the top of the cap. So, keeping that in mind, Joy, please help me to do this sector breakdown. I'll start with sector 1, which is turns 1 to 5. We start flat out down the main straight, renamed in 2020 to the Hamilton Straight, heading down to Abbey, that's turn 1. It's a high speed right named after a nearby medieval Luffield Abbey. Then you glide through Farm, turn 2. It's a fast kink named for an actual farm that was once sat next door. Village is turn 3. It brings in the heavy braking, so that's a prime overtaking spot. It's named for Silverstone Village. The loop is the slowest part of the lap, that's turn 4. It's a hairpin and it's tight. And Aintree, which honors a classic British racetrack, is turn 5. After that, you're out onto the Wellington Straight or the first DRS zone, gearing up for some serious racing. It's built on one of the former World War II runways and it references the Wellington Bombers.
Yeah, moving on to the sector 2, which is from turn 6 to 14. This is the heart of the lap, the arm lifting the trophy. It starts with Brooklands, turn 6, named after the pre war British circuit, then sweeps into Luffield, turn 7, another nod to the Luffield Abbey. Woodcote, turn 8, pays tribute to nearby Woodcote Park. And Woodcote has been the start, the finish, and now it comes in between somewhere in the track, right? And it
Yep.
leads you onto the legendary Copse, turn 9, a fast flat ride. From here, you flow into the corners, and that you will hear most often in the commentary, the Maggots and the Becketts, turns 10 to 13, a swerving sequence named for Maggot Moor and Beckett's followed by Chapel, which reference a now demolished chapel, which was a tribute to Sir Thomas Becket. And these are the real trophy moment corners. They are fast, flowing, and stunning to watch. Overtaking, rare here, but a great setup in Sector 1 pays off in Sector 3.
And sector 3, which is the final sector, is turns 15 to 18. Finally, you grip the steering wheel and close the loop. We head to the second DRS zone or the hangar straight, another tribute to military history, quite literally the hangar for the RAF planes. Stowe, turn 15, is a quick right over the crest, a challenging corner named after a nearby Stowe school, and marks the biggest elevation drop, almost around 11 meters downhill, right into Vale, turn 16, a slower left named for the valley or local district. Then Club, named after the Royal Automobile Club in London, completes the final curve back on to the Hamilton Straight. Stowe and Vale are solid overtaking spots thanks to heavy braking zones and the downhill momentum shifts. And that brings us to a whole breakdown of the lap itself. So, Joy, what are your podium predictions for Silverstone?
Well, this year I would have my hopes high for McLaren to have another
Okay.
1-2. But having said that, just a bit of trivia about my favorite racer, Lewis Hamilton, in his home race. He has been on the podium in the last 11 races that has happened here, and
Yep.
out of which he has won 8 of them. So
Yes.
I won't discount him from being on the podium because with the little bit of British weather thrown into the mix, he knows how to capitalize. So maybe for me it would be a McLaren 1-2 with Hamilton in third.
I really hope that happens because I know for a fact that every time Lewis comes to Silverstone, there's something about him. Like it's not the car that's driving anymore. It's just Lewis and his sheer will to be on the podium. So I sincerely hope that he doesn't break this streak. Ferrari, please, please don't break this, man. I do want to double click on the McLaren though. I know you said McLaren 1 2, but who is your 1 and 2?
Let's wait for the weekend for that. Let's wait for the qualifying. See, it I have my hopes high on Norris, being his home race as well. But Piastri
Yeah.
is on a charge. He has been really good this year, and he's understood the car very well. The setup is working for him. So he is a challenger. He will push Norris for the top step. He will push for the pole. So I mean, I know it's a McLaren 1-2 for sure, but who gets the top step? It has to come down to the qualifying day because Norris had some mistakes over the last few races. He
Yeah.
himself admits so. He's been a little reckless about his setup and so on and so forth. So I would still like put my money on Norris for clinching the victory. But
Yep.
having said that, Piastri is not gonna make it easy for him. So either of the two.
Absolutely. And the thing is, with Norris, like he's incredibly talented. So if he gets it right, like the whole weekend just goes so well for him. Like while Piastri, if he gets something wrong somewhere, he still tries to make it up. For Norris, everything has to go perfect. And when it goes perfect, it's just a beautiful thing to watch.
Yep, let's hope that happens.
So let's go into some of the history of this race because there is so much of it. So sit down, kids. It is story time. So it all started in World War II when Silverstone was an RAF bomber airfield with 3 runways. After the war, a group of friends, mates, if you will, organized the famous Mutton Grand Prix in 1957. Yes, because a sheep actually ended up on the track, but the chaos sparked something very special. By 1948, the Royal Automobile Club leased the site, and in 1950, Silverstone hosted the very first Formula One World Championship race, attended, of course, by King George, making this royal circuit ground zero of Grand Prix history.
Well, to add a little bit to the trivia, I would say that India also has a little bit of part to play for the first ever Grand Prix that happened in Silverstone. As you mentioned, that the Royal Automotive Club that actually hosted the first Grand Prix here, the head of that club was Lord Mountbatten. And because Lord Mountbatten had left India by 1947, that kind of sort of led to the first race that ever happened. So we had a small part to play, if I may say so.
Wow, I'll take it.
So from 1955 to 86, the British Grand Prix rotated between Silverstone, Aintree, and Brands Hatch. Aintree is the same venue as the Grand National Horse Racing Track, and while its motor racing days are behind, I would think that if you squint just right while watching the horses run, you can imagine those old school F1 cars zipping past the paddock.
Oh, that would be great. Very, very fun to watch.
Yes.
But yes, fast forward to the late 80s and early 90s, and the track was amid constant evolution. The speedy triangle layout slowly transformed into a more technical design. You mentioned, Cops was the beginning, and now it's somewhere in the middle. By 1991, the famous Maggots Beckett's Chapel sequence debuted. The Hanger Straight got a proper bridge, and new corners like Stowe, Vale, and Club were added, making Silverstone trickier and more thrilling. Safety upgrades in 1994, following the tragedies at Imola, slowed down Cops, Stowe, and Abbey, and some of the others, adding runoff zones and chicanes across the circuit.
Well, in 2010, Silverstone unveiled the modern arena section and relocated its start finish line with new pit facilities. It even
Yep.
got rebranded as the Hamilton Straight in 2020 after Lewis Hamilton's record shattering wins.
Yes, and I think you mean Sir Lewis Hamilton because he has really had some of the best moments at Silverstone because this track has delivered drama for decades. So we're talking broken bones, title defining battles, and homegrown heroes bringing the house down. Let's kick off with one of the moments that gives us goosebumps to this day. 1987, Nigel Mansell versus Nelson Piquet. So almost 11 years before you started watching. So these two were teammates at Williams, but they were definitely not friends. In the race, Mansell pitted for fresh tires and hunted Piquet down with the entire Silverstone crowd behind him. On lap 63, he threw his car down the inside at Stowe and made it stick. The crowd went absolutely mental, like full stadium energy. And after taking the win, he burned out his engine doing a celebratory lap because that's just Mansell.
Of course. And speaking of Mansell, the iconic photo in 1991 in qualifying when Senna's car lost fuel and lost the place to Mansell. He got out of the
Yep.
car and rode the side saddle in Mansell's car. Now, fast
Yes.
forward to 1999, and things turned darker. Michael Schumacher suffered one of the worst crashes of his career after a brake failure sent him flying into the barriers at Stowe. He broke his leg and missed 6 races, ending the Ferrari's championship hopes for that year. It was a brutal reminder that Silverstone can be as cruel as it is iconic.
And speaking of greatness, Lewis Hamilton's 2008 masterclass in the wet, it was unreal. It was raining cats and dogs, and yet he was just in another league. He won that race by 68 seconds. 68, that's not winning, that's domination. And gentle reminder, he was only 23 years old.
And only his second race in F1 at Silverstone. So,
Yep.
yeah, he is a legend. But then came
He is.
2021, possibly the most controversial moment of the turbo hybrid era. Hamilton and Verstappen, title rivals at full tilt, collided at Copse on the first lap. Max went into the wall at 51G. Hamilton got a penalty but still won the race. Fans were either furious or euphoric depending on who they backed. Either way, it changed the tone of that championship fight forever.
And Hamilton Verstappen has just been such a controversy. And in that year, 2021, so many controversies for them that year. You can never really say who was right and who wasn't.
Well, it ended with one.
Was it right though?
Yes.
But let's not forget 2022. First lap, Zhou Guanyu flips upside down and skids into the catch fencing. It was terrifying. But somehow he walked away okay. And that is a testament to FIA safety standards. George Russell was the first to get out of the car and try and help him, thereby disqualifying himself. And then later in that race, we got the three-way scrap between Leclerc, Perez, and Hamilton. 3 cars, wide at club, absolute cinema.
Again, some drama that Silverstone always throws at us. But finally, 2023, the year of Max Verstappen, Lando Norris front row start, holds off Verstappen for a few laps and brings home a massive P2. The McLaren
Yep.
fans in the stands were losing it because McLaren was struggling up until that moment. That whole weekend just felt like a big warm hug for British motorsport.
And we have to talk about 2024 because what a moment. Lewis secured his first win since 2021 and he made it 9 wins at Silverstone, more than any driver at a single track. He started P2 and the weather played its part, but his team nailed the tire call, switching to slicks just before Norris. He held off Verstappen by just 1.5 seconds and then let the emotions loose. Tears, Union Jacks, the whole home crowd going nuts. Honestly, it was beautiful. I almost cried. It felt like, when Charles won Monaco. It's just a beautiful moment. On the other side for Mercedes, George had landed pole and he led early, but it all unraveled mid-race. Rain hit and he went off at Abbey, plus a hydraulic issue forced him out around lap 27. Brutal home race outcome, but his pace was there.
Well, at the Red Bull camp, Max couldn't grab the win, but he scrapped hard. He stayed on Hamilton's tail and passed Norris late in the race. Red Bull's strategy, switching him to hards on the final stint, helped him secure P2. He also extended his championship lead, so it was damage limitation done well. Perez in 17th, as we were slowly starting to get used to his usual spot and the second Red Bull car being down the grades.
Yep. And Yuki Tsunoda is my favorite driver, and just watching him struggle in that Red Bull is just it's very, very painful.
Well, we have to kind of now admit and accept that it's not the driver anymore. It's just the way the car is built. It's too much oriented to Max Verstappen's driving style. Like, I mean, put
Yep.
anyone in that second car, they're always going downhill.
Yes, that is true. But back to Silverstone, the McLarens were strong. Lando led through the parts of the wet, and Oscar was running top three before he went off the optimal strategy. Norris eventually finished P3, Piastri P4. Both of them were sort of licking their lips at the podium, but late tire and strategy calls just cost them that top spot.
Yeah, Sainz rounded out the top five, grabbing the fastest lap too. Ferrari was solid in the midfield shuffle, and a clean strategy let him score valuable points. Unfortunately, on the other side, it was a disappointing outcome for Charles Leclerc. He grabbed on an early switch for Inters, which didn't kind of pay off and left him in P14.
Hulkenberg again scored with P6, showing Haas's strong mid-pack pace. Magnussen followed in P12, not the point scorer, but still a solid in the midfield battle. Kevin Magnussen, who plays a very important role in the F1 movie, in case you haven't seen it. Fernando clocked P8, while Lance came home in P7. Double points finish for the Aston Martin team at home, always a good motivator.
So let's quickly run through the back of the pack with Alex Albon finishing P9 and Logan at P11. Scrappy midfield team doing well to pick clean opportunities. Daniel Ricciardo closed out the points place at P10, scoring well for the team. Tsunoda ended just outside points P13, Alpine struggled, Ocon P17, Gasly retired with a gearbox issue. Overall, a rain-hit, dramatic Silverstone Grand Prix with Lewis Hamilton showing his best.
Yes, absolutely. And I know I've said this at the beginning of the episode as well, but I really, really, really want him in the podium this weekend. Preparing for Silverstone is always exciting because everything can be very unpredictable. As always, teams come armed to the teeth because while it's historic, it's also a high-speed, high-stakes circuit that punishes any weakness. Silverstone demands a medium downforce setup. You need a lot of wing to stick through the fast corners like Copse, Maggots, Beckett's, Chapel. It's built on the former World War II airfield. It's flat, but there's still a surprise 11-meter drop in that final sector. So the engineers balance aero and stability to handle that relentless directional change and the heavy braking zones. Precision is key. It's the track where setup errors always show up.
Yeah, I mean, it is a very technical track to be really honest because of its the way the corners are built with long right-handed corners and long straights that your car needs to be in a setup which is suited for both. It can't be just set up for the straights, it can't be just set up for the corners. So for 2025, Pirelli will most likely select a challenging trio of the C2 the hard, the C3 medium and C4 soft to encourage more pit stops and strategy gambles. Expect teams to do one-stop races as the main plan, start medium and switch to hard or reverse. That said, we might see inters in play thanks to British rains. At Silverstone, a typical pit stop including entry, wheels and exit takes nearly 21 seconds, so you'd rather save it for when you really need it.
Only at Silverstone will your morning coffee be sunny and your lunch will be drenched. This weekend's forecast shows temperatures in the low to mid 20 degrees with a 50 to 55% chance of showers in qualifying and the race. So the teams must stay nimble, ready to switch between slicks, intermediates or maybe full wets on the fly. Wet conditions can shake up the grid, bounce the tire strategy out of the window, and turn a midfield fighter into a podium contender. And I know the UK has been experiencing a heat wave right now, so this is going to be a very interesting thing to watch out for.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so what to expect? So Silverstone, as always, is a motorsport festival. The fan zone is one of the best. You can hop into racing simulators, try the pit stop challenge, think like team tire changes. Can you do it faster than the F1 crew? Test your reaction speed and grab selfies with real F1 cars.
And that's for all the people who buy like general admission tickets or, grandstand tickets. But what about the really wealthy? Well, Silverstone now has brand new Escapade residences. luxury trackside homes designed for F1 fans. These
Yeah.
range from sleek one bed pads to expansive four bed spots, complete with terraces, charging stations, and views over Copse to Brooks. Sounds
Yes.
great until you realize there will never be quiet over there. The grandstands, helicopter thumps, and engine roars will be your constant neighbors. Romantic idea? Maybe sleep in Sundays? Forget it. Live here full time? Well, you might love or despise the permanent soundtrack of motorsports because it's not just Formula 1. You have Formula 2, Formula 3, some of the regional formulas, and it's just going to be noisy all the time.
Well, I mean, to add to that, we would have had a taste of that being Indians because the whole Delhi circuit and the development around it was supposed to be a sports city. And the whole thing failed because we stopped hosting. Otherwise, maybe we would have had a little taste of what's gonna come. Maybe.
Oh, that would be so exciting. Honestly, though, I can't tell if I would love it or hate it. Either way, we need to do something about the entertainment tax bit. Now, there is a lot of jargon that you hear on the radios. Like if you ever watched an F1 race and thought, "Wait, what did the engineer just say?" Don't worry, you're not alone because honestly, F1 drivers and engineers sound like they're speaking their own secret code half the time. So, let's break down some of the most common phrases that you will hear during a race and what they actually mean. So let's start with the classic lift and coast. Sounds chill, right? It's not. This is all about saving fuel or managing engine temperatures. Lift means you take your foot off the throttle earlier than usual, and coast means let the car roll into the braking zone without pushing it. Except you're doing all of this at 300 kilometers an hour with all of the others chasing you. It's not that easy.
Yes. Then there's the one you hear all the time, manage your tires. This is basically F1 for don't drive like a maniac. The tires degrade quickly, especially when you lock up, slide, or push too hard through the corners. So, when the team says this, they are telling the driver to smooth out their inputs, preserve the rubber, and stretch the stint. So these cars are always built for a particular setup, and the driving style kind of determines how much pace they can get out of that setup and the kind of tires that they are on. If they stretch too much, the tires wear off sooner and the pace goes off. So that is a constant evolution through the weekend, and that's why we have the practices. That's why we have the different setups, different running patterns, what the teams typically say going on with their schedule, right? So it's not slowing down, it's being smart that makes an F1 driver fast.
Another one is harvesting. No, they're not collecting crops, they're collecting energy. F1 cars are hybrids, and every time the driver brakes or the turbo spools up, the cars harvest electrical energy and store it in the battery. That's what powers the extra boost later on. If you see red lights on the back of a car, that means they're harvesting energy.
Yes, and you'll also hear things like go to Strat 6 or Multimap 3. So this is the team telling the driver to switch engine modes. More power, less power, save fuel, cool the car. It's all done with a knob on the steering wheel. And these steering wheels are something. You must look at them and to identify what all goes and how many switches are there. It's no less than one on, say, a fighter plane. So sounds like a video game, but those settings can win or lose a race.
And finally, you have the iconic box box. That's code for come into the pits now. It's a holdover from the early days of team radio, but it's stuck and now it's become kind of legendary. You'll hear box the slap or just box for when it's time to change the tire or a quick strategy shift. But that's a wrap for us on the British Grand Prix, but we need to discuss one last thing. So, Joy, what is your boldest prediction for the 2025 season?
Well, as of now, if we look at the Constructors' Championship, Ferrari is on number two, even with their mishaps, being disqualified from Shanghai, and so on and so forth. So, my boldest prediction is they will be at number two, defeating Mercedes, defeating Red Bull, and all the other competitors, even though they might not be winning too many races. So, what they have done with Lewis Hamilton being part of the team is the consistency that Lewis Hamilton and George Russell were bringing for Mercedes, gaining points even on tracks where they just did not have the pace. Leclerc is a charging bull, if I may say so. He is ambitious. He will push the car beyond its limits, and being with the team for so long, he kind of understands the setup. But what Lewis Hamilton brings to Ferrari is the consistency that they can streamline for races to come. I understand there's still some glitches with strategy calls, there's some errors of what he expects the team radio to be and what it actually is, but eventually, over the next few races, I feel they will smoothen all those issues and start gaining on points as for every race. So, yeah, my boldest prediction is Ferrari clinches P2.
So honestly, I would find that surprising if Ferrari is managing to come to P2 because Mercedes has also been very consistent with George Russell. So it is going to be a tough battle for P2 right now. And I guess, I mean, we still have like a lot more races to go. So we'll find out soon enough.
Yeah, we should. And see about Mercedes, it's about how soon Antonelli kind of finds ground, how soon he kind
Yes.
of gets into that consistent realm of playing the long game and not the race per race sort of. So I mean that's something for a rookie to understand. That's something for a rookie to get used to play the long game. See, Russell is a pro now. He is
Yes.
gunning for the best whenever they get the chance. Like for cooler temperatures, Mercedes does have the pace. But for
Correct.
the next few races to come, and with the temperatures kind of soaring every year, and even in places like say Belgium and places that erstwhile had sort of a cooler environment. So
Yeah.
I mean, it is getting tougher for that philosophy to work that Mercedes is currently on. So Russell might try his best whenever he gets a chance. He might score a bag of points, but Antonelli has to chip in. So if he does, yes, Mercedes will give a fair fight to Ferrari, and I hope so because till Lewis was there, I was an ardent Mercedes fan because
Yeah.
they kind of scaled heights, but now they are kind of losing the grip. So let's see. It's to be seen in the next few races of how they kind of cope up with it, bring in upgrades, and how they turn over the car into a beast. But that's a story yet to be told.
Another story that's yet to be told, and I know this is all rumors, but I would like for us to speculate, is that apparently Max Verstappen is holding a lot of discussions with Toto Wolff. Do you think there's a chance for Max to break his contract with Red Bull and move over to Mercedes?
Don't you think Toto is a poker player? He throws in
Yes.
such kind of trumps whenever people are not expecting it, and sometimes they are all bluffs. So yeah, Max might be discussing, but I don't think Christian Horner will let Max go so easily.
That's
Having
true.
having spent so many years developing a car to suit his driving style. I mean, Red Bull just has one car, to be honest, as I mentioned before. It
Yep.
is about Max Verstappen and him, just him. So with
Yes.
2026 bringing in new rules and new set of teams, Audi, etc., coming into the bandwagon, I don't think it's the right time for Max Verstappen to switch teams. It's just a bunch of rumors, it's just a bunch of conversations, and Toto being Toto, but I am pretty sure that he's sticking around for a few more years with Red Bull.
Maybe Max is doing that so that Red Bull pays him a little more. I mean,
Exactly.
he has two kids now, and he's struggling to make ends meet on his giant salary. I'm sure.
Yeah,
So
he's just raising the stakes.
yes, exactly. But if Max does move, who do you think Toto will bench, George or Kimi?
I think Toto will put Kimi as a reserve driver or a support driver because George has given a lot of time to the team and they have
He
kind of
has.
established a sort of way of working, which is working for them as of now. With Max and George at the helm, Mercedes will
Oof.
again be a very strong team. So,
Yes.
I think Kimi still has some time to adapt to the way a Formula One car works. So maybe being behind the scenes, doing all the like what Bottas is doing right now, right? So
Correct.
he's kind of taking care of the media, the PR, and the R&D and all of that.
Yes.
So that also kind of matures a driver. That for Kimi, it would be really good to be part of that. So I think it will be George and Max racing and Kimi as a support one.
That would be quite an explosive team. And honestly, I kind of want Max to move to Mercedes just so I can watch that. I think it'll be very exciting to see.
It will be surely.
But that is a wrap for us. We have a break next week, but gear up for a sprint weekend in Belgium at the Spa-Francorchamps circuit. To our amazing listeners, what do you think? Drop your hot takes in the comments, send us a message, or tag us in your wildest predictions. Don't forget to follow, subscribe, and share F101 with friends because this community is just getting started. If you have any queries or you want to be a friend on the pod, please reach out to me on Instagram. The link will be in the description. Special shout out to Ashwati and Kevin who support the podcast and also my mental health. Thank you, Joy, for being on this episode. I've been your host, Nisha, and we'll see you on the next episode of F101 with Friends.